This then we are now working on to put into a resolution that tries to encompass what everybody is trying to tell us about climate change, which is basically two or three things. Firstly, they support the direction that we've been taking with the Davos Declaration. They support the initiative to make sure that we get into the Bali framework in some way. But there were quite some strong views expressed, particularly from South America, about the fact that they did not want to be marginalized as a consequence of climate change. They didn't want tourism to become hostage to climate change, and they certainly didn't want aviation to be singled out in any sort of discriminatory manner in regard to climate change. And they didn't want WTO to, they wanted it to be clear that tourism is a subset of the big negotiations that are going on in the UNFCCC. The London Ministerial, which reviewed and endorsed the Davos Declaration, but added some specific points. And then this assembly is the sovereign body. And what we asked them to do is to take account of all these developments and then agree a resolution which broadly says, Secretary General, we support this direction. These are our concerns and reservations. This is your mandate for going forward to Bali. And first, look at Bali. Bali is a process which is a totally separate process from tourism. It's basically the process to begin again the renegotiation or extension and adaptation of the Kyoto Agreement. So it's all about big picture stuff, and tourism's just one small piece of that. And in the negotiations, they'll only look at tourism in the same way they look at all the other sectors of the economy. What we will try to do in Bali, what our plans are, is the Secretary General has the opportunity to address the parties to the convention, the sovereign states, and to actually take the mandate from here and put that into the record. After Bali, we will consider that we've done everything we can to develop our roadmap. We won't do any more roadmap developments for the next year or two. We have to turn to implementation. We'll then start processes with those 4 categories that are identified in the Davos Declaration: the governments, the private sector, the consumers themselves, and the networks, the media networks and the research networks. And under each one of those, there's a set of actions, and we'll have to launch those actions, and we'll have to work with our members, and we'll participate in public debate around the world, and we'll stimulate some of our own discussion. The climate for innovation is fantastic. People see, business sees a real opportunity to make money out of clean energy and a whole host of things. So we'll be engaging on that, and we'll be shifting our work program to take account of that. We are constantly talking to the United States about coming back into UNWTO. We think that, I mean, we like them back in, obviously, because we want to have universal coverage. We want them back in because, you know, they will be tough with us, but they have good ideas, and organizations like this should get all the good ideas into play. And we want them back because we think that we can be helpful to them. Because there are some issues out there, like climate change, which you can't afford not to be party to. Somebody once said that the greatest driving force is inertia. The biggest single issue is for the industry, the public and the private sector, to really take this seriously and to start picking up these points and putting them into their action plans, not into their long-term strategies. It's quite easy to do that. The real thing is to sort of start working on these things and say, you know, we were going to announce a tourism policy tomorrow, but having thought about this Davos Declaration, we haven't got enough in there about climate change. We plan to have a major event, and that major, like a World Cup for soccer or an Olympic Games, and we've kind of started to talk about sustainability, but we haven't thought about the climate change impacts of those things.